Hello and welcome to episode 153 of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner and myself, Seth Hellman. Rabbi, how are we doing today?
Baruch Hashem, we're good. It's the fifth day of Nisan. It's a big deal. We're getting into Nisan. We're getting close to Pesach. Pesach is next week. Guys, get ready. Get ready. Get rid of your chametz and get your shmura matzah. You have two seders. Make sure you have enough matzah for both. Every sheet of kazayis minimal. Round matzah, I would say it's about a third of a matzah. Don't overdo people and give them a whole matzah and they won't eat anything. Just give them a third of a matzah, okay? And I don't want people telling me, oh, a third of this and that. Leave me alone. Okay. So here we got some powerful feedback from last week. First of all, my older sister in Israel, heard number of 152 while cleaning kitchen, siren, comma, safe room, and back to the kitchen. Good Shabbos. So that's life in Israel. But look, what could I say? Even though there's a war going on and it's a lot of stress, Pos-cast is listened to. Then I got a long email from a shliach in Chicago, from Baruch Epstein, who's an avid listener. Did you know that?
I don't know
I
if
didn't
I
know
did know
either.
that.
That's the first time he's written. But what he wrote about was also very interesting about, listen how he starts. I listened to the Pos-cast number 15, open parentheses, of course, who doesn't, exclamation mark, close parentheses. When he discussed the idea of giving dollars, one is received from the Rebbe. And he goes on to talk a little bit about that. I found it very fascinating, very insightful. And I was, I didn't realize that people had talked about this so much. And so he comes in from the angle of, like, if you got that dollar from the Rebbe, I mean, it's supposed to be your dollar. But when the Rebbe gave dollars, he wanted the result should be that people should give tzedakah, right? That was all. I'll give you a dollar, give this dollar, or it's exchange. Wink, wink. I know you're going to keep my dollar because you think it's special. It is special. So give an exchange of it. So the Rebbe wanted to promote giving dollars. Like I mentioned last time, that sometimes the Rebbe gave people dollars and said, you'll be able to make a lot of money from these dollars. When they're doing a fundraiser or something. It wasn't often, but I think it happened. So the idea over here of giving a dollar to somebody and that would cause that person, and it would be treated respectfully and use it as a gift, would result in giving a lot of tzedakah or a nice amount of tzedakah, which of course is all relative. Might be a good thing to do. But then he talks about a couple of people that he gave dollars to that find it very interesting. So one of the things I can't read this though. The idea of giving your children the dollars. See, right? It will eventually all become the property of my children. Open parentheses, in a long time, God willing. No, but that idea that the dollars you got from the Rebbe are your children are eventually going to have them. Mm-hmm. Obviously before Mashiach comes, after Mashiach, whatever. But and I was talking about how we had things from my father that we got, and so you might as well give it to your children when they, like, my wife gave our granddaughter who got bas mitzvah. She was here, in Mendy's daughter, gave her a Rebbe dollar. Like, let her have it from when she's 12 and have it for the rest of her life, God willing. And it should bring her a lot of blessing, and she should cherish it and feel, why wait, So I hear that. And other people that he gave it to, certain person who, about tshuva, who asked for a dollar, or a person who was a little bit older than normal, like in his 40s, who was becoming a shliach. And he was, he thought that this would give him a lift. So I thought it was interesting, the idea of what to be talked about. Anyway, that's about the follow-up about the dollars, whether you should give people Rebbe dollars. I just think, in a way, I don't know. like having a raffle and one of the prizes is a Rebbe dollar. Like, I don't know. I just I can understand if somebody comes to you and says, I'll give $100,000 to the Chabad house, but can you give me a Rebbe dollar? Obviously, it's not contingent on it, but that's more like as a sign of recognition and appreciation. He wants to have a connection to the Rebbe. I can see that. But if somebody, but just like raffling it off, I think in a way seems a little bit disrespectful. Like one guy will win a prize. Ugh. So here we go. Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence. Listen to this. Oh man, this is so crazy. So it has to do with dogs in shul. So I'll
Okay.
tell you the end of the story, then I'll flip back to the beginning of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I posted on my status that I posted a paragraph from Ramesha Feinstein. Ramesha Feinstein passed away like in the early 80s, something like that, was considered to be like the number one halachic authority in America since he came to America, probably, I don't know, early 50s, 40s even. Anyway, sometime around then, he had a yeshiva, and he was a very, very fine person, and he was like recognized by everybody in the world. And he gave a lot of rulings about contemporary things happening in America, and also he was known to look for ways within halacha to make people's lives a little bit easier. You know what I mean? Hello?
I'm nodding. Yes,
Sometimes
yes, yes.
it's huh?
I'm listening.
It's always easy to say it's forbidden, it's forbidden, it's forbidden, but to be able to find a way around, especially difficult issues, you have to have a really sharp mind and halacha to be able to like find rationale to allow people, in certain circumstances that are difficult, to be able to do things properly according to halacha and not disrupt their lives. So he writes about taking a seeing eye dog into shul. He says that it's permissible. So I put in my status, and like a few people like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? So here's the story. Now we go to the beginning of the story. The beginning of the story is last week, BU and Berkeley were both on spring break. So we weren't going to have a minyan Shabbos morning. So I walked to Northeastern because that last week they had already come back. So I walked to Northeastern. I'm walking down the block, right on the block of the Chavanos. And there's this guy with these two dogs, two huskies. I called them small horses. They were, very zaftig dogs, I gotta imagine how much they eat. It's crazy. Anyway, and there's a guy, a man I would say is 30 years old. And as we're walking by, he says, Shabbat Shalom. Like, oh, okay, let's talk. I don't stop talking to people with dogs, or big dogs for sure not. So we started talking, and he lives right behind Commonwealth Avenue, right on Common Avenue, not Bay State Road, the other side, which is like, officially it's Newbury Street.
Mm.
Right behind, at Cross Street Chabad House, then behind that, there's like one block. It's called Newbury Street. I think it's called Newbury Street Extension, whatever, it's Newbury Street. Anyway, it doesn't matter what the name of the street is. So I talked to him. I said, oh, yeah, he's Jewish. He lives over there. Blah, blah. I said, oh, you should come by sometime. Come for Friday night, whatever. Okay. And that's the end of that. That was last week. And this week, by divine providence, 4 people that were supposed to come to shul, supposed to come because they said they would come, didn't show up, and we have 9 people.
Mm.
So I went outside to see what's going on. It's very quiet, Shabbos morning, as usual, very quiet. And I see this guy walking
You
the
say as
2.
usual, but
Well, it's quiet Saturday morning, and it's quiet. I see this guy walking across the street in the park area, whatever it's called, and he's on the far side, and he's walking his 2 short horses, big dogs, and I think and I think, oh man, I should go ask him to come to shul, be the 10th guy. Like, he's those dogs, wow, and I think he waved to me, and then And then he was walking towards Kenmore Square, and he turned around and walked the other direction. He walked the other direction, like, oh man, why did I ask him? I should have asked him. We'd have a minyan. And I'm sitting there like mulling it over, and he turns around and starts walking back the other direction. Like, okay, Hashem, I'm going. So as he's getting like across the car, I go over to him and say hi. Very friendly guy. He says hi. I said, hi. We need a minion. He said, oh yeah, I would love to come sometime. I said, no. We need a minion right now. He said, right now. He said, yeah, like. And he says, and he looks at the dog. Can I bring them? He said, are they going to behave?
Mm.
He said, yeah. And one of them actually came up to me, like it was like I was standing there. It's like it was like just lifting his head up.
Wait, so
And
you had a dog in the middle, or is it
wait
still
a second,
outside?
wait a second. I'll tell the story. Now's your time. Now it's time to listen. So the dog comes near me, and I'm like, it just like lifting up his head. And he said, oh, and he pulls it back. He said, what's the matter? He said, nothing. Just like I don't want your suit to get full of dog here. It's like Hashgayach. So I said, okay, come. So then so I'm like, now I'm thinking like, what do I do with these two big dogs? So I said to him, so we walked into the Chabad house, and he gave me yarmulke. Then I told him there's no women there, so I told him sit down over here in the women's section, and I figured no one would see him. So then I walk around, and I start davening. I don't pay attention. I don't pay attention to him. I'm just like davening. But Yisro opened the curtain like about a foot. I guess like he shouldn't feel like he's me. I don't know why he did. He opened the curtain, so a couple of the guys are looking across the mechitza to see who's there, and I see them smiling, whatever. And I'm just davening, going straight davening, not worrying about anything. And then after Amida, I turn around, he's gone. I said, "Oh, how long did he?" Oh, he had told me he can only come for 15 minutes, which was fine because we were going to get to the first Kaddish and whatever. So he ended up that he left. Okay, fine. That's the end of the story. So then I told the guys, how I knew this guy, and the whole Hashgacha Pratis, and they came to the minyan, and then I said, and in fact, those two dogs were well behaved than some of you guys that were yapping in middle davening.
Well, so what's funny about it too is, Huskies not only do they shed a lot, but they are famously very loud dogs.
No, these were not dogs. They were very quiet. So now the postscript of the story is this. So by lunch, Hani says, I came downstairs to come to shul. But before I came there, I said, I'm going to go down to the basement and I'm going to set the table for lunch. I said, usually I come up the stairs and I walk into shul. But this time I said it was a very nice day. So I walked outside and figured I'd just get some fresh air. I'll walk out the front door, go up the stairs and come in. As I'm walking up the front steps, this guy walks out, these two huge dogs. And so I jumped. And the guy said, oh, no, the rabbi said it's okay. So she says to me, could you imagine if I had walked into the shul, I would have seen two dogs sitting
Right.
there? Oh, my goodness gracious. So then the question was, are you allowed to bring dogs into shul?
Mm.
So that's why I did a quick search and dug up this thing from Ramesha Feinstein, who says that it's okay for a seeing eye dog, for a person to be able to come into shul. He shouldn't have to stay home from shul. He's allowed to come in. He's allowed to bring the dogs into shul, provided that they don't just cause a disruption. Which, of course, in our case, dogs were perfectly behaved, no disruption whatsoever. But then I did a little search here, and I found actually amazingly on Chabad.org, there's a whole issue here about bringing a dog into a shul. Now, and this is the Rebbe was writing letters back and forth with this man called Rabbi Menachem Mendel Kasher,
Mm.
who wrote whole explanation of Chumash, like a 20-volume thing, whatever. So the question is whether not allowed to have a blind person bring a seeing-eye dog into shul. And this rabbi says it's forbidden based on the ruling that you're not allowed to bring an animal. There's a thing in the Torah that says you're not allowed to bring an animal as a sacrifice if you got the animal in return for a dog. Like you say you take a lamb and you exchange with your friend. You have a dog, he has a lamb. You say you want to bring a sacrifice, I'll give you a dog. So you can't bring that. You can't bring an animal for a sacrifice. Now, in Rav Moshe's answer to the question, he finds a Gemara that talks something. I didn't look at the Gemara exactly, but it talks about when people are traveling or doing business and they want to bring their donkeys and they have a donkey carrying their stuff. He says, so the Gemara says you're allowed to bring it into the place for davening. He says, if you bring a donkey, why can't you bring a dog in? And if you don't let the dog into shul, that would deprive the person being able to come to shul. Okay. Now, in Tafshin Yotes in 1959, the Rebbe writes about this, and he says that the point over here is, two things. First, he says, we find in Shulchan Aruch that certain people that you think may not be able to come into shul, if they're going to feel very distressed about it, everybody's going to shul, they can't go. You're not allowed. They're allowed to go. And it talks about like if a person is impure, tamei, which is a temporary thing because technically a person who's tamei can purify themselves. Even then, even a temporary thing like that, they're allowed to come. They're allowed to come into shul, not to give them that discomfort. Because you can imagine someone who can't see. It's like a lifetime thing. He's never allowed to come to shul because so that's so the Rebbe says that's inappropriate. Which, by the way, is very. We spoke about this one time. When the Rebbe looked at people with disabilities, he never looked at them as disabilities. He always looked at them and would encourage them. You have extra energy, you have extra power, and which was very much ahead of the time because in those days, people that weren't perfect specimen of human beings were looked down upon, all that kind of stuff. And of course, the Rebbe looked at it as that if Hashem created you that way, that means that if you're short in one area, you're stronger in another area. So then the Rebbe brings this idea that because you can't bring an animal that's in exchange for a dog as a carbon, somehow that shows that you can't bring a dog an animal into the Beis Hamikdash. And the Rebbe says a fascinating thing, which is so unbelievable from the Gemara. Now listen to this. We're going to learn about this, not this Shabbos, but not next Shabbos, it's Pesach, but the one after that. We're going to learn about the fire that descended on the altar in the Mizbeach when they brought the sacrifices in the Mishkan. Now, in the Beis Hamikdash, what was the form of the fire that came down from heaven? Okay, a
What
lion.
oh, okay.
It says that there was the fire that the fire came down in the form of a lion, but that's about the first Beis Hamikdash. In the second Beis Hamikdash, it says that the fire on top of the altar resembled a crouching. Say it.
What, a dog?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's in Yoma.
It was a long time ago for me.
Hey, you want to see if I can pull it up here? Yoma 21.
We're talking May of 2021 was Yoma.
Here we go. Amar Mar. The master said the miracles that happened in the Beis Hamikdash, the smoke of the arrangement of the woods, the smoke. Oh, Here we go. The miracles that happened in the Beis Hamikdash. So one of them is that the smoke that went up from the burning of the sacrifices, the winds didn't displace it. Okay. The Gemara asked, and did the smoke rise from the arrangement of wood on the altar? Well, wasn't it? What? In other words, did the Gemara asked the question? What do you mean the smoke that went up? Did the smoke even go up? Was there smoke even? We learned in a brayso that 5 things were said about the fire on the altar. Number 1, it was crouching like a lion. Number 2, it was clear as the light of the sun. Number 3, it had a substance to the extent that it could be felt. It was powerful enough to consume wet wood like dry wood, and it did not raise smoke. So how can you say it was a miracle that it went up? So he said, the Gemara answers, we're not talking, the smoke, when we said that the smoke was not displaced, meaning the wood, like the wood producing smoke that was in reference to fire brought, like it says that the children of Aaron should bring fire on the altar. Nonetheless, even though there was a fire that came from heaven, it's a mitzvah to bring your own, in other words, you don't rely on it that the fire is going to come down from heaven, you have to light it yourself, which is a powerful lesson in our life as well. We don't wait for Hashem says I'm going to do powerful things for us. That's fantastic. We have to do our effort, right? It's a very basic idea. Okay. That's that. Okay. Now the Gemara asks a question. Ravutza Kari was crouching like a lion, but we learned in a Baraisa that Rachaninas Ganakainu said, I saw, and it was crouching like a dog. So the Gemara answers, here it was in the first base of Migdash, and here it's in the second base on Migdash. And then goes on, and was it really there in the second base of Migdash? And because then we see that this is one of the things that was missing from one of the 5 things that was missing. There were 5 things that were in the first base, which were in the second base of English. And what were they? The Ark of the Covenant and the cover of it, the Keruvim, the fire and divine presence, so it seems there was no fire from heaven. So the Gemara answers, yes, there was a fire from heaven, but it didn't help in burning the sacrifices, only visible above it. Fascinating. So now we know the Shtickle Gemara. Huh. So here we have, so now we see this, look how the Rebbe pulled this out from under his hat. So here we have the Rebbe bringing this out, that how can you say you can't bring a dog into shul when you have a dog? In other words, there's something on the Beis Hamikdash. Yeah. Okay. And then it goes and people want to argue that it wasn't actually a figure of a dog, just whatever. That you go to Chabad.org, put in letter dog in shul, and you get to the Rebbe's thing. You can read it. There's a lot of interesting halachic debate going on about this, and even about the dog. Was it actually a dog? And if you want to look it up, you can read about it. And so I want to thank all those people that, first of all, somebody asked, I think, at lunch, you think it's a lot? Because I remember reading that answer from the Igrish Moshe, even if you just flip through it, it's just such pertinent and relevant questions that it's fascinating to so I think I once glanced at it, and I had this in the back of my head, and that's why I justify bringing the dogs in. I don't think I could have quoted exactly where it came from, but it somehow, it was bouncing around in my head. I remember that. So there we go. And it's permitted now. So now the question is this: we have 2 issues here. Number 1 is a dog allowed to come into shul? Number 2 is this whole discussion was about a dog that's going to help a person come into shul. Even though the Rebbe's discussion here about the dog being on the form of the fire being a dog has nothing to do with it's just a general idea that it's nothing terrible having the concept of a dog in shul is not a horrible thing. But then the question is, the halach, when Ramesha gave his answer, was about a seeing eye dog that was helping a person be able to come into shul. And the pain they would have, the discomfort, they weren't able to come. So I'm going to say that if this is a discomfort for a person who can't come into shul, what kind of discomfort is it to have 9 people not be able to have a minyan on Shabbos?
Mm.
So therefore, if you can bring a sing-eye dog, which benefits 1 person, so this guy can bring in 2 dogs to satisfy the needs of 9 other Jews being there. And by the way, this is the first time the guy came into the Chabad house. Every time I meet him, I met him last week. I asked him his first name. I don't remember it. This is not
A
surprising.
surprise to no one, yeah.
I don't remember his name. And so now I want him to come. I want him to come for Shabbos, like for normal davening, without the dogs, and for Pesach. So I'd have to. I don't know. I don't know what to do. And the surprising thing was this: when I went out, I was thinking, oh, maybe the guy will come. But then I was walking to shul at 9:30 last week, and this must have been 10:30, looking for a minyan.
Mm.
So now I'm a little confused because most dog walkers have a set time. No, not so much.
I mean, it varies, right? Like, I feel like the dogs get on their own schedules, but it depends on because like if I think it would be different for I don't know because I can only speak to my experience with our dog, right? Like both my parents work from home, right? So there's always someone home with the dog, so the dog kind of has the ability to just whenever he needs to go out, he just starts complaining and they take him out. But if you were at like when my parents weren't working at home, my mom would come home at lunch and then he would get walked, whoever was the first one to get home, right? So he'd get walked in the
Right.
morning. So there were set times. So like for a working
Okay,
person
so
who's not at
so
home with their
so
dog.
to basically, it's not that it's a set schedule that it has to go at the same time. All right, I got that. Anyway, so hopefully I'll be able to meet this guy and get his name and get his whole thing and have a shtickle conversation with him. But that's all right. Now you all know why there were 2 dogs at the Chabad house for part of Shachris, about 15 minutes, probably less, because a couple of the other guys came. They came a little bit late. So then he left. I wasn't watching because I was focusing on my davening, facing forward in davening. Okay, guys, this Shabbos is called Shabbos HaGodel, the Great Shabbos. This is the Shabbos that Moshe told the Jews on the 10th day of the month, go and get your lamb ready to bring to shecht it on the 14th day of Nisan to be able to eat it on the 15th because we're going out of Egypt. And set aside the lamb for 4 days and guard it. The lamb was the idol of the Egyptians. So when the Egyptians said, "What are you doing with the lamb?" They said, "Oh, we're going to shecht it, and your firstborn is going to die, and we're going to leave." And they go like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!" So the firstborn started a revolt. They said, "What the heck? You don't trust him? 9 times he said plagues are going to happen. They happen. We don't want to die." And they had a civil war with Paray. And that's why it says, Lamaka Mitzrayim B'Vchareim. Hashem struck Egypt with the firstborn. Not he struck the firstborn of Egypt. He struck Egypt with the firstborn. So simply means the firstborn was struck, and so that bugged up but no. You take it literally, that firstborn were the plague. They're the ones that attacked. So it's a big Shabbos. It's a big Shabbos. Now, we don't celebrate it on the 10th day, we celebrate it on Shabbos specifically. And that's because on the 10th day of Nisan, 40 years later, Miriam passed away. So we don't want to commemorate the 10th day and make it as a time. If the Rebbe says, well, Miriam passed away the 40th year they were in the desert. This story happened when they first left Egypt. So what did the first 40 years they didn't celebrate it? And so therefore the Rebbe says that there's a connection between the firstborn revolting against Paray and Shabbos. What is Shabbos? Shabbos is a day of rest. What does rest mean? Rest can mean negating negativity or transforming negativity. And here's a case where negativity, the firstborn that shows in the strength of Egypt, that became transformed to a force to going against Paray. And so therefore, it's very much has a deep connection to the idea of Shabbos, because when Mashiach comes, the forces of evil, negativity, will be transformed from evil to good. And that's what there's a custom, I don't think everybody does this, but there's a custom by Chabad for sure to read the first part of the Haggadah after Mincha on Shabbos Haggadah, because since the whole miracle started on Shabbos Haggadah, we read the first part of the Haggadah. And another reason it's called Shabbos Hagadol, maybe this came later on, but that rabbis give a big speech on Shabbos Hagadol. And essentially it should be talking about halachas that are pertinent, that they have to know before Pesach starts, and also some words of inspiration. So that's happening this Shabbos, and yeah, get ready for Pesach, and having the two dogs help us make a minyan. I think that's a transformation of elevating the two small horses. They brought in the master for, and that's another hashgacha pratis that I love. That's what I love. You know, I love that about the story. And I walked the menu from Mincha Ma'ariv, and I met this guy on the street corner, and like, oh, good Shabbos, and yeah, where do you live? Where do you go? This Chabad, that Chabad. Walking another couple of blocks, couple of girls. Shabbat Shalom. Where do you go? Oh, we were there last night by Mendy's. I say he's a nice guy, no? Ah. All right. Transformation of negativity to positivity. Only good. Mashiach now. See you all in Yerushalayim for the Carbon Pesach with Mashiach.
Amen. That, thank you so much for listening to episode 153 of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner. We will see you next week.